Hi there. Welcome to the family card table. I know maybe some of you saw the stuff that all of us have been putting out about this family card table, and we will be having a sale in the mid to end of September, like 70% off. So if you are looking at our website and you're thinking about getting involved, you might want to, wait for that next paycheck and buy a couple of those things because I think they're going to give you so much to build on to have these conversations with us. So, hello to Donna and Rob. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any themes? Anything going on this week? Anything you're noticing in the weather, if you will? No.
I
Well,
uh,
go
I
ahead.
just had a visit from my niece.
Nice.
My brother's daughter came out to stay with me for a full week. She left yesterday.
Oh, and you only have boy children, so it's a girl in the house, huh?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, and it was really good. She's really sweet. I can't help but think of a little story to kind of go with what we're talking about today, since we're going to be talking about court cards.
What's her card?
Her card's a seven of spade.
Oh, I love them. I love
Yeah,
seven spades so
they're
much.
they're so different, you know.
I
Um,
love them.
and there was a moment of like defiance, you know. And I'm a queen, so I can be a little bit bossy and controlling. Go figure, right? And so the context was that I took her out a lot. We went to the Tillamook Cheese Factory where you could do a tour of how they make the cheese and the ice cream and all that. And our plan was to go to lunch. And she was like, "Oh, I want to get some ice cream." I'm like, "No, wait for after lunch because we're going to have lunch." So then I went to the bathroom and I came out and I couldn't find her. Come to find that she had gotten in the line for ice cream and she ate 3 scoops of ice cream before I could catch up with her.
How old
And
is she?
she's, believe it or not, she's like 18. Like, so, you
Ice
know,
cream, still ice cream.
yeah, right. And so that was kind of like, okay, that was a little defiant. And then, of course, we go to lunch and she has a stomach ache because she ate 3 scoops of ice cream and a whole bunch of cheese on an empty stomach. But I bring this up because, like, I have to, as a teacher, having over 30 years of teaching experience with children, and mostly at the middle school age, that court cards are just really powerful. And so, because of their powerful personalities, there's always that potential that they're going to display a little defiance, or they're going to kind of say, "Don't micromanage me, don't control me, let me do it my way." And
Mhm.
that's exactly what I was dealing with.
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, I would say there's so many crude ways I could repeat this because it's been reflected in very crude ways, but I'm trying to keep this, PG or G. But I've always heard from others I have a very persuasive tone. Like whether I mean to or not, once I'm in standing in a certain idea, I'm coming out with that in a pretty strong way. Like everybody knows what I think is the best way to do it. And I don't necessarily back down easily because when I got to what I think was the best thing in my head, it's the best thing. Yeah. So welcome, Gina. We did start, and we've just been chatting about what's been going on this week before we begin the court card conversation. And how are you?
I'm good. I'm gonna have to jump off early. There's a spirit night for the school that I just found out about, and I'm going to be taking. It's her birthday weekend, so I was like, okay, we'll go. Is what you
Oh,
want to
how
do?
fun!
So, yeah, my little one turns 10 on Sunday, so no more
Double
single digit
digits.
babies.
Wow.
I know, but yeah, the I was thinking about that today. Me in school, I felt for my teachers because I was a real jerk. I wouldn't listen to nobody. Like you couldn't tell. I didn't go figure. I'm a fixed card. So there were
Uh-huh.
certain teachers that would work with me in my inability to listen. And there were certain teachers that could not stand me because I would challenge them. You know, I would buck right up with them and not really like if I felt that you weren't like intelligent, I wouldn't like listen. I would just have a field day with you. It was really bad. So yeah, the court, I can imagine having to teach jacks or kings at that because of the just stubbornness that we have. You know, for sure.
So when I was teaching Gina and I had Jack of Hearts, the one thing that I noticed about them was that they really wanted me to connect with them on an emotional level and to affirm their emotions before, you know, having expectations of academics. Do you think that's a fair kind of view of?
I struggle with math, and I realized I just needed to be taught in a different way. And if you didn't get a teacher that could see that, like, and I'll shut down. I will shut down emotionally. I won't even listen to you. I was combative. But what I realized is I needed it just broken down a different way. Just takes a little bit more time with me. I'm real sensitive. So I felt like if I didn't get it, it didn't mean that I was stupid. It just meant that I would look at like, you're stupid because you can't teach me. But, you know, but at the same time, yes, that connecting on a more emotional level, I was real sensitive. And if I didn't get something, I would take it to heart. Like there was something wrong. Right. But yeah, I would definitely say like coming down to just understanding, like, not just brushing me off, you know, like, why aren't you understanding this? And again, because I'm one-eyed, if you don't, I have to like help me see it from a different perspective. You know what I mean? Teach it to me in a different way. And then once I got it, man, I rocked with, you know, you couldn't stop me, but it had to click. And if they didn't take the time to help me click it, it became, then there was the butting of heads, you know?
Nice. Great awareness.
Yeah.
And what were you like with the other kids as a Jack? Did you find yourself like, you know, helping the underdogs and things like that? Like, how did you work with the other kids, Gina?
I was very friendly. You know what I mean? I had all different types of people. Like I wasn't subscribed to one group. I was kind of very friendly with all the different types of people. I always, like, if someone was being picked on, I would like stand up for them. You know what I mean? Like I did not like that. Like you don't treat people like crap. Sometimes I would be like the teacher's pet because I kind of like that attention. Like, let me be, me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know the answer, or let me help. Like when you get to be a little helper, I love that. I love that so much. But yeah, I was very social. I was not very shy. I don't think I was really shy unless I was uncomfortable. If I was uncomfortable with people, then I would be really reserved, but that's really not me to begin with. So
I always loved my Jack kids actually, because there's such a creative energy no matter the suit. And there's a little bit of like free spiritedness about them. That like my son has, that I saw in them, that I could appreciate. And because of that, you know, they were the kids that tended to be kind of like the alternative kids, like like the skater kid or the like punk kid, the kids that dressed a little bit, you know, different from the norm. And I liked those kids because they were different and they were very expressive at a time when, you know, kids can tend to be at the middle school age, very conformist, you know, not wanting to stand out and be different. And I appreciated that about my Jacks.
yeah, I was voted most dependable in middle school. I was voted most dependable. I think when they had that, you know what I mean? Like some people, you know, the class clown gets voted, I got always the most dependable. So that was kind of cool.
Nice.
Isn't that fun that they used to vote things? That'd be a really interesting kind of research, right? Like what cards were voted what as they were growing up. Because I remember in middle school them doing those types of things. And yeah, so, and I mean, I remember getting most unique in in like undergrade school. And then in high school, most outgoing, because I was like, thinking I was running the place. So like yourself, I wasn't friendly with everybody, but I was in a connection to every single person, like, from the principal to the guidance counselor to the janitor. Like there's no one in that school that didn't know Madeline and didn't know that she was like gonna say hello, talk to you, engage you. Do you know what I mean? Like I really enjoyed connecting to people's hearts. I think that's the King of Hearts part of my personality card. Like I really enjoyed like making genuine connections with people, and then I would be able to talk to them for whatever. I didn't care as long as it was real. I've been doing a parenting coaching, and we used this parenting pyramid the other night in our class, and I really appreciated some of the wisdom of it. It suggested that the way to work with your child to correct them is at the top of the pyramid, and at the bottom of the pyramid is like, how are you? Like, where are you at? How's your relationship with your partner? The person that you're making the decisions with. What's your relationship like with the child? How have you taught them? Like, how are you their teacher? And then you make the correction, because that relationship that you make with them is what empowers the potential of a authentic connection, without like just not having the relationship and going, get off that table, you can't do this, stop that, because then there's no relationship that they're using to kind of co-regulate in. I thought it was a really great way of looking at it.
Yeah, I like that technique.
Perfect.
I like using I feel statements too. Are you familiar with those?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, therapy.
So for, when you're disciplining, you say, I feel when you, and then you describe the behavior that because, and you do that because you're not directing the bad behavior at them personally. And also you're able to express how it makes you feel. As an example, I mean, that's what I did with my niece when she had a stomach ache, and then of course couldn't have lunch with me. So I gave her one of those I feel statements. I was like, I felt really disappointed because I was hoping to have lunch with you today, and I ended up having to sit in the restaurant myself eating lunch while you sat in the car because you had a stomach ache. So
So you kind of asked her to be conscious of that. If she makes herself feel bad, she changes the experience, which is like that bottom one. It's like, if you're out of balance, then you're going to affect the communication and the co-regulation in the relationship.
Right.
Because, kids tell when you're a teacher or anyone, like if you're a little bit off or you're not in your center, kids know that.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's, whether you're a teacher or parent or whatever, it's okay to express your feelings. Everybody has to respect each other's feelings. So it's a common place to build from.
Yeah. How about you, Rob? I guess you really can't relate to being a court card in school, huh?
No, I can't at all. I don't know. I'm interested to hear the three of you talk about it, and for the listeners, you don't know already, Growish is a king, Donna's a queen in this system, and Gina's a jack. And so, yeah, I'm definitely interested to hear about that, because obviously when I work with clients, it's adult clients. And so I know that obviously as children and in the card system, it does speak to kind of earlier in life tendencies and later in life tendencies. And so, yeah, very interested in what you all have to share.
So, Gina, I have a question for you then about something that's interesting about court cards, is that there are certain court cards that are called one-eyed cards. And in jacks, there's two one-eyed jacks, and your card being one of them. So how do you experience being one of the one-eyed jacks?
And I have the Jack of Spades in my result card, so I got both of them. So I'm real stubborn. And that's what the thing is. I would only see it my way, and to teach me really required a lot of patience, because I could be like, even like my poor parents. I remember one night my dad I didn't want to eat the food that and I'm real picky with food too. So like really ridiculously picky. And I sat there all night staring at the food. Like, I ain't eating this. We can be here all day. And we were like, and so that's how I am. Like, you're not going to get me to change, to move. Like if I don't like something, if I don't want something, I don't care how many ways you present it, how you doll it up for me. I'm not going to do it. And you can try your hardest. It's just not going to happen. So I know that can be very challenging in a school setting. But at the same time, I was also very friendly, very loving too. Like I became very, like a lot of the teachers liked me because I was sensitive. I would help them. I love to help. I loved to be a part of like helping, putting the projects together. I remember in high school, I was taking drama and we got to create a soap opera. And I got to be the director. And I mean, I took over the whole project though. Like I kicked everybody, like I wanted to do it all on my own. Like, because I wanted all of it. I got to make them, like, you remember how like Days of Our Lives and there'd be like the music would make the scene even more like intense. So I was finding like the music and like, it just becomes like this, when I'm like really passionate about something, I'm in it. But let me tell you, if I don't like what we're learning, I'm going to be, they would find me asleep at my desk. So it was either one way or the other. And I learned better when the teachers were interactive. If you just sat there and gave me papers to read and then expected me to be, I wouldn't pay attention. I would have no idea. I'd probably fail. But if you made it fun and you made it interactive and you made it like, you know, more exciting, I was all into it. So it just kind of just depended. Some teachers, like I said, I would butt heads with, and some I was their favorite person in the whole wide world, that they would still remember me. You know, I'd go back to the school and, oh my God, you know, and even my kids, they're the same. My oldest one, especially because she did so well in school that everybody always asked about her and how she's doing and just how much she took charge and, you know, how she did. It's funny because I jokingly say, I don't know where she came from, because the way how serious she took school, I barely made, I mean, I skated through school. So.
I don't think it's that uncommon for an ace of spades to be the valedictorian or somewhere up in that range. I think that's kind of like the call for that card.
Yeah.
I know several of them who were that. One of my closest friends in college was the ace of spades and the valedictorian of our class. You know, like it's important.
Thomas Edison was an ace of spade.
There you go.
Yeah. No, Gina, what you said, how you described yourself is spot on how I describe a lot of the Jacks that I worked with, in that if they didn't see value in the learning, they were like, I'm out of here.
I'm done.
And so it was real important for me as a teacher to do a lot of experiential kind of work with them, to hook them, you know, to have some creative way to like hook them into the learning. You couldn't just, you know, say, well, you know, this is part of the curriculum. You have to learn this because this is what's in the curriculum. Like, they were like, no, I don't.
I always like, when am I going to use this in my life? Never.
Exactly.
So I see no relevance to this at all. And I don't care if you like, I did not care. I just did not care.
And I think as a parent too, it's like important to understand that, because as a parent, you need to manage your expectations of those children because of that characteristic. That this might not be a child who's going to be your straight A student. They may have like all A's in a subject, and then like you were saying in math, he didn't like math. He didn't, you know, maybe have a C in that one subject, and the parent going, you know, you're so capable. You make A's in everything else. What's wrong with math? But that's okay. And I think court cards generally are very, because of their power, successful people in life, and parents get stuck with this, oh, I'm worried about their future. I don't think parents should be worried when their kid's a court card, because they figure it out.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure my parents didn't think I would do very much with myself because of just how lackadaisy and just like on.
I don't know. Right before I came out, I put
Right.
on my moon glows. How do I get it up there the right way? Where's the front of it? There you go.
Yeah.
She did
See
it.
what I did?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I really think they were like, she's gonna bear, like, she'll be lucky if she makes it out of here alive, because I just was, I bucked the, I kind of did my own thing. I really do, you know, sometimes struggle with that authority, and like, again, people trying to tell me what to do. It didn't work for me. I did not like it at all, and I resist it. I will go against it. But if you, like you said, Donna, when you made it fun, when you made it creative, man, I was like, yes, give me more of it. But if you made, I'm like, it was a waste of both of our time.
Well, you know, the jacks are interesting because I've had a lot of jacks classrooms, and I think the way I consider my relationships with jacks, we've like co-mentored each other, because they do have an adventurous, like risk-taking initiative. Like, come on, let's see, let's look at this. What do you think? You know, like they're the ones that'll like spark the fire to be like, let's go over there, and I'll be like, all right. Do you know what I mean? Like I would jump on. So I've always appreciated the initiation energy of a jack, but I've also found that I have to stay conscious of like that I'm a Saturn card to some of those jacks. Do you know that the king has a responsibility to be accountable, right? So if I let my jack of spades, you know, Jupiter, wherever it is, if I let mine come out and I get into the play, I can lose my focus pretty good, right? Because the play, it's like that Pinocchio land, you know, it's just like, let's just have fun. Like, who cares? Do you know? And I'm not against it, but I definitely have had to reel myself in a couple times playing with some jacks, because they'll just go and go. Do you know what I mean? And they kind of feel, especially when their personal values are aligned to what they think is right. Like, this shouldn't be a rule, so we don't have to follow it, kind of stuff. Like, this is a dumb rule, so we don't have to follow it. And I'd be like, oh no, what do you mean? Like, why not just keep the rules? Then you don't have any, you know, jail sentences and things like that. Like, you know, why not just stay in the game board? You know, that would just be more of my awareness of like the consciousness that whatever happened to me would ripple. And sometimes I think the jack being the in-between worlds card, like it is, because it's kind of got that ability to get admonished and back into the royal court, but then it can play all wild when it's out, you know? So no offense to it. I like I said, many of my closest relationships are with jacks, and I enjoy them immensely. But we've had to co-mentor each other and kind of get each other honest about some of our more, I'm going to just use my word, bratty ways. You know what I mean? Like, we really had to, like, my wife and I, she's a jack of clubs, and like we've really had to bring each other to size a couple times. Like, all right, honey, what's going on over there? You know, and I'm grateful for her reflection.
Oh yeah.
Very
Jack
grateful.
clubs, man, they're woo. They can press buttons. Right.
I got into a lot of trouble with jack of clubs. Like, we got together. Like, we did
Right.
dumb, risky
Fed
stuff.
off of each other.
Yes, very much. Once I found out, like, people that I went to school with cards, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense why we were in so much trouble together.
Yeah.
You said the risk taking, the literally living on the edge was wild. I'm lucky to be alive sometimes when I think back to my high school years. I was doing things that you should not be doing in high school. Hence why I became probably a helicopter mom.
Yeah. But they're loyal too. You know, there's
Yeah.
once you, like, being a teacher and authority figure, once I won over my jacks,
Mm-hmm.
because you had to earn their respect. But once I
Mhm.
had them, they were loyal. Like, they
Yep.
were there. And they
They're little
showed-
helpers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I
They
love
probably
that.
even come into your class when they're not in that class to come see you, to come
Mhm.
talk to you, to come hang out with you. Oh yeah. When we feel like we're like this, it's especially the Jack of Hearts, because, you know, we're stuck. So you're kind of with us to the end. You become like a very, like, someone that they trust. And especially being a kid, that's a big thing. You know, for someone to trust you and to really like you or want you around, you know, that's a big thing.
I've had a couple of times though when I've had like 3 jack friends at the house, and they were different jacks, and it took them a little while to become all friends. Do you know what I mean? Like to get familiar with each other. And it was interesting. I saw even the way my relationships were with all of them. And I just happened to have had a gathering where they were all there one time. I was like, oh, this is so interesting. Look at how I relate to each one of them kind of in their language, you know, which is one of the things that is my nature, to meet the person in the language of their own heart. But what was important to them and how things went and what to give them to do. But they all love beauty though. They love to make it beautiful, you know? So when it came to like doing the table or setting up certain things, it was like, oh no, she loves that and she loves that. Can I just say, can you two girls do that together? Hey guys, you guys want to do that together? You know, and it's kind of up to them if they're able to share the beauty and share the stage, because when you give them a project, they're on it. Like Carrie Ann's a great friend of mine, and but when she's doing it, and you really have to kind of let her be the one doing it. But if there's two Jacks trying to do it, they don't have that king like me that says, okay, well, I'll sit back, you show me what you want, tell me what you need, you know. And so they have to sometimes negotiate that space, right? Can you all hear the wind that's going on around me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go inside. Okay, go ahead. So carry on. Are we going to discuss the queens in that same deep way?
Yes. So being a queen, the way I look at queens is that the queen of the court card gives service while the kings rule. And so they serve through like their suit. So a heart through love, a club like me through communication and knowledge, the diamond through their values or through money or their work, and spades through health and work. And obviously I fit my card really well, having been a teacher all my life. That was definitely service through communication and knowledge. And I also feel like a queen, because they are a court card, are a little bossy. Like you can ask my son, like I can be bossy sometimes. I remember as a kid, like, I played with dolls. I was always like the girly girl, not the tomboy, but the girly girl. And I loved pink and purple. My room was all purple, and I'd like to play school. So I started very young at, doing the nurturing and the caring and all of that. And one of the things that was also true about me was that when I was a student, I definitely was all about like being the teacher's pet. Like that was something that I wanted. I wanted to be the one that the teacher could count on and help in the classroom, just like you were saying, Gina, too. But yes, queens can be bossy for sure. And they're leaders too. There's leadership potential, particularly as they get older. What has been your experience, you guys, with queens?
For me, the twins are the Queen of Hearts, right? So I got a big queen classroom there, and they had two of them, so they were so dynamic. I mean, what they created around them was like a fortress. So they had a very graced way of going in, but they liked to learn. Like you said, that communication. I don't know if it's all the queens, but they like to learn and they like to connect.
They have the 10 of clubs as Mercury, so they were like super brain. They wanted to just be fed. Yeah,
they love it, and they love challenging it and critical thinking. Like, they didn't even have to learn that. Like they were doing that. Those things they said to me growing up were things that I was like, "How did you even think of that?" Like what? Where's your head? What's going on? Like it was definitely something that I was like, boy, you're a classroom. I'm getting a notebook. So I found them to be that way, even in school with their teachers. Now, I'm not going to say they weren't the distractors who did stuff to the electrical outlets and did stuff to, set stuff up, and did end up going into the office because one of them said, where do I buy a gun, or where do I buy a rope or something? He typed it into the other one's computer. Like they did things just to entertain themselves, and then the other one would get called in and say, I didn't write that, he wrote that. And then they have to be like, well, who wants to commit suicide? And they're like, none of us, we just want to mess with each other. Like they were having fun in their corrupt way a little bit. So I do feel like there's a taming of that part of us, because there is a lot of power that can come with a personality of that type. You know what I mean? For sure. And the Queen of Diamonds, I find they're big learners. Like I have several close friends. They love to learn too. They really do. And they like it in grace. Like they're all about how it looks and how it is. Like it's very much like that. And the boys too. They're fashionistas. The queens really care how they look.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed interesting about Queen of Spades, because there aren't a lot of them, first of all, but having taught so many years and obviously working with thousands and thousands of students, I did come across some, and my Queen of Spades were interesting in that they were really introspective. They were not your extroverts. They were very decisive in their decision making. But the thing that I found most interesting about them is that they had like a flat effect on their face. So when you were disciplining them or talking to them about a situation, it was like they're blank. They had like a blank face. And that, I know some teachers that it bothered them that there was like no reaction because they assumed that the Queen of Spades weren't listening to them. But they were just really taking it in. Like they just really are such reflective and introspective kind of personalities. At least that's been my experience with them.
Yeah, that's my granddaughter. She's a Queen of Spades, and she's very much like that. She's so introspective and so deep by nature. Like, again, she blows my mind with the way she processes and then comes back to what she says. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, and concise. Like she, after her process, she can pull it out to you like, dot, 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 dot. That's what happened. And she doesn't go into all of the histrionics. You know, she lets her tears out, but she does her inner, it's an inner experience with her process.
It's amazing. I mean, because I'm more of like a verbal processor being a queen. Like, it's like I get it out, I get feedback. And so I talk a lot and I'm a Gemini. But the Queen of Spades I've had, it's fascinating because they don't talk a lot, but when they do, it's like, wow, there's wisdom. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah, they're Capricorn too, so they have that, like, that's why they're that hard work, put in the work, really mastering themselves. And I think with queens in school, like as children, they probably were like the ones trying to get everybody, like the nurturer, like trying to be the mother to everybody. And it probably could be annoying to some because it's like, why are you trying to tell me what to do? You know, but at the same time, they were like, if you got hurt, they're the one that would, you know, walk you to the nurse or, you know, make sure you're okay and, you know, stuff like that. But I definitely could see where, again, and them also wanting to be the helper, wanting to be, you know, involved in some way, shape or form, you know, by being able to take care of others as well. I think that's a big part of their being of service, you know, however, in any capacity that can show up for them.
Yeah, you know, I think it was in the Ernst Wilhelm teachings regarding these cards, but in the system. But it's something that really stuck with me in that sort of these court cards, the Jack, Queen, King. The Jack is sort of a bit of a personification of the Ace 2-3 sequence. The Queen 4-5-6, the King 7-8-9, and that seems to hold true, you know, in my experience with the Jack, Queen, King. You know, the Jacks are a bit of initiator and getting things moving in the conversation, the collaboration and thinking, and just really initiator. The Queens are, you know, the 4-5-6, this energy of creating stability and making adjustments and then finding right work and meaningful flow in life and work and things like that. And then the King with the 7-8-9, this sort of, I find, at least with the Kings, there's this sort of let go, let God type of energy and right use of energy and force, and this sort of a let go. There's sort of a letting go-ness with it as well. So yeah, that's you know,
I never heard that before. That's genius, Rob.
I like that. That makes a lot of
Love it.
sense too when you think about it.
Yeah, it's not something I came up with. This is something that Ernst Wilhelm has.
Well, he's a genius too.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying him a great deal, and it makes so
He's
much sense,
fantastic.
right?
Yeah.
It makes so much sense. And of course, then, you know, the way I've dreamed of these king, queen, jacks in my reflections and writings is how the king is that mind or that higher mind space, right? And the queen is more the heart space. And then the jack is the player, you know, the under the belt, kind of like take the risk, roll the dice guy or girl, right? So there's a way that alignment, even in yourself, like how are you using your jack? Because it's in all of us, right? Even if you're fixed, you know, you're part of this energies, right? So how are you playing? And how are you meeting it from here? And how are you using your wise mind, right? Because that's how you use the cards, especially the court cards, or the idea that we all grow to that possibility. But it's a ages and stages cycle game. And in that, then there's a way that we're all going to ask ourselves at some point, are my heart and my mind working together? And can I trust myself? You know, like Carolyn Miss has been my dose, my Friday conversations. I'd listened to her and she told a great thing today. She said that, would you, if you had a choice for $1 million or not to betray yourself ever again, what would you pick? You know, and she was like, so many people would pick the $1 million, but to grow the essence of who you are, it's that not betraying yourself. And not betraying yourself means not betraying anyone. Do you know what I mean? And so it's really deep if you think about it. I mean, I got myself like, gosh, like even when I say I'm going to do something and don't doing it, am I betraying myself? You know, like, but it's really being true. Or would the $1 million make you not think about the fact that you have to be true to yourself? And you know which answer I picked, but I also said it out loud and said, gosh, I wonder what's going to happen, because I do want to pick out loud to not betray myself ever again and to do things in a way that I feel is right. Because the over accommodating, you lose clarity when you grow angry or resentment. So as a king who wanted to be liked sometimes, I might have kind of gone along with things. Though for the truth, I was usually leading the fun too, but I liked to stay in the lines. I didn't like to bother the older people. I didn't think it was fun to like make a big scene. Like I was like, why can't we just have fun and keep it where, you know, we're having fun and nobody is in trouble? You know, like why do we got to go there? You know, it just was of my accountability, and also I knew the ripples. So it's like I don't want that ripple. Though if somebody was doing something that I felt wasn't okay, I had a hard time not saying something.
That's the part of kings that I really love, you know, like
The tattletales? I'm just kidding.
My sisters will love you. I hope they're listening. They'll be like, oh, Madeline's going to go tell the truth, so we're all screwed. And be like, well, I'm going to live with myself forever. Sorry, I don't care. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, but that as a teacher, like I appreciated those kids because like particularly being a middle school teacher, that's where a lot of the bullying goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of the bullying a teacher doesn't see because it's under the table. Mm-hmm. And so in bullying education, they talk about, you know, the bullies and then there's the bystanders. And my kings were not the bystanders. The kings were the ones that said, this isn't right. And they did something about it. And I appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a choice, right? Like it's if you are a king or you have a child that's a king and you think that they're doing disrespectful, like I'll say, especially if they're getting older, there's no way that they can't say it. Like, and if they do, it's at a cost. Because then it's going to come out another way, or they're going to be mad at themselves, or they're not going to be able to focus because they're coming through with the, you know, the clarity that it is to be in that energy. And they're trying to inform. Now, I'm not saying that persuasive energy can't be used for like getting everybody to do what you want. You know what I mean? I for sure, what did they used to call me? Like, you know, the Tom Sawyer kind of thing. Like if I wanted to do something, like say my mom said, let's go clean the fence. I was the one rallying all my friends to come and help me clean the fence. You know what I mean? I wasn't out there figuring out how to do it myself. I was like, all right, how am I going to get help with this fence?
I love that. You were delegating.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel proud of. I'm being honest, but that's really what happens. You know, so it's like, all right, and also it'd be more fun to do it with someone.
Right.
I got that too. You know, I'm July 2nd. I have it too. I like to play with people.
Yeah, But I love that you were delegating though, because kings are meant to rule. And so that means you're managing others and delegating to others. So you were practicing.
And I was always a working boss. I like to work. Like, I'm not lazy. I like company though.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You
Yeah, Rob, I see you.
I also want to mention, an element that we haven't talked about yet regarding the court cards, and that is, with the queens, the king, the masculine, feminine energy of the cards, and obviously, masculine, feminine doesn't necessarily mean male, female. Obviously, there's I know many men that are. But there's a feminine quality with that queen. There's a softness. There's a energy, and likewise with the king, there's a masculine energy, oftentimes with that king, and which brings me to the thing that I talk about all the time in the astrology world, and that is that we're all born with the perfect birth chart, with the perfect card for from my perspective, evolution, growth, and journey. And so when I see someone with a queen card, it's like, well, guess what? In this lifetime, there's something about embracing that feminine energy. King card, embracing the masculine energy. Of course, it's never black and white. There's no this or that thing. It's a spectrum across the thing. And likewise with the Jack, there's a bit of it's a bit of an in-between type of thing. It's just more of both energetically.
Not tipping to one. I think we can tip to
Right.
too much to one to the other sometimes. It's
Yeah.
finding
Right,
that balance,
right.
It's non-binary.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with Charlie XCX?
Mm-mm. I'm going to leave this studio and jump from my phone. Okay. So I'm going to bounce out of here and I'll get on from my phone. I'll be right
All
back.
right, bye, Gina.
Bye.
Hi, Gina. Yeah, Charlie, this is something that my son was explaining to me because I was driving through his neighborhood and there are these political signs out on yards and it says Kamala is brat. And I'm like, what does this mean? So he explained it to me that there's a musical artist called Charlie XCX and she basically represents in her music the non-binary and the queer community. Like they resonate with her music really well. And her album is called Brat. And so I was curious and I looked up her cards. She's a Jack of Diamond, Jack of Diamond.
Yep, that makes total sense. The word Madeline means Jack of Diamond. I completely understand. I really understand that. There's such a command that can come when you stand strong in yourself that just makes you feel like you are a brat because like everything you need comes to you. And I think that's actually a gift for all of us to consider that when you stand in what you know and you're super clear, and if that Jack of Diamonds knows what she's about and has no fear, the world is coming to her. Everything she needs will come to her because of the way she's standing in her clarity. Like that's kind of the invitation. Nice. I'm thinking about the card pull and what would be a way to use the Jack, Queen, and King in a card pull in regards to, I don't know, we've talked about the dynamic between the three. Do you know what I mean? We could talk about things that, I don't know, what are you guys sensing would be a fun way to look at the three cards in the card pull, including the court cards today?
So I got 2 decks out.
Oh.
So I'm going to use one deck for the mom and the dad. And I thought the child, I pulled just the court cards in the second deck.
Oh, fun. Great idea, Donna.
So the child will be one of those cards. What do you think?
Cool.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, yeah, I was also like how the Jack, Queen, and King work together because we keep talking about that. But I like what you're saying because you want to stay in the parents. So let's see in 2 parents pulling out, what would you do? Like 2 other cards, like from the court cards, we'd have 2 parents and then we'd have 2 court cards and like that and talk about it, or
Sure.
Sure. I'm open. I think all the cards will bring us to good places.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed the conversation. And I think what we're touching on is important for anyone who has court card children are in their class or even that they work with, because sometimes they can present almost arrogant and not aware the same way. But if you're running, like Rob said, at the 7, 8, or 9, and you're building that bridge to the back to the 1, you're not really thinking about the stuff that the 1, 2, 3, or the 4, 5, 6 are, because it's not where you vibrate.
Ooh. Okay, so I shuffled my cards. I basically invited the cards to share the wisdom of the cards with us today to represent a family. So the first card that I pulled will be the card representing the mother. The second card will be the card representing the father. And then I'm going to take a separate deck of just court cards, and I'm going to pick 2 children out of those cards. So, and they will be court card children. Ah, interesting. Okay, so let's start with the mom. So the mom's birth card is a 5 of diamond.
Nice. We'll use our 5 interpreter for that.
Yes. The dad's card is a 7 of spade.
Oh, my favorite. Mm-hmm.
And then we got 2 jacks as the kids.
Ooh.
So a jack of club and a jack of diamond.
Oh, that's interesting, because they're going to be motivated differently.
A little bit of pattern there too. And I'm just like looking at this too, going, look at all this odd card energy, right?
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, that's a lot.
What happened.
Yeah. So one thing that I know true about dealing with court cards too, and this is more true for like the kings, but also true of the jacks, is that as a teacher, if I were disciplining this kind of a child that had jack energy, I would not discipline that child in front of their peers. I would not call them out in front of their peers. I would say, hey, can I talk to you later? Maybe even take that student out into the hallway, because they will take risks.
They'll make a scene. They'll make a scene. Mm-hmm.
If they think they've been wronged, they will let you know, and you will be in a power struggle. So even as a parent, if you have multiple children, or if your child is one of these 2 cards and their friends are over and you're calling them out on something, do not do that in front of their peers or their friends.
That's a really good one. Yeah, I reflect on that and realize even in my friendships with the jacks, like I have to be careful when and how I say things to them, because the relationship is definitely not going to hold if they feel like you're wronging them or setting them up in a way that you're taking them out of their ground. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So there they sit with the 5 and a 7 parents who have like their own dynamic, right? Because that's the thing I really want to start bringing into play, is there's a real dynamic between the parents, and that plays out into the children, because I haven't met a family yet that the kids didn't imitate the relationships at their house.
So Rob, what do you think about that 5 of diamond mom?
Yeah, well, as a 5, well, first of all, I mean, just the whole family and dynamic in general stands out to me with, again, those odd number cards. And to me, that's a helpful thing, because it's as if everyone's sort of on the same page of that life's about movement, and that an ability to kind of go with the flow type of thing. And flux and change is likely a part of that family's journey together, without looking at the combined card, which is always a fascinating exercise to see what the combination is. But the 5 of diamonds mom, and it's someone that's likely been through many career changes, many changes related to work or even life and travel and growth, and flux. And with that seven of spades father, it's sort of well understood as well. So I don't know. I guess that's all I have to share right now. Does someone want to talk about the seven of spades?
They're just so deep and spiritual, but also very sensitive. And they have a lot of faith, but if they're not in a good way with themselves, then they can really compromise the grace of a space, because they are very powerful. But if they're in a place of peace, or they're standing in like who they want to be and their reasons and stuff like that, and they have lots of energy, like they're not lazy. Do you know what I mean? They're workers in my experience, But the couple of them, like this one little girl I know, she was really just anxious and sensitive, like really sensitive sometimes. So I think it's how did you manage that sensitivity, right? Because you're a powerful place, but you're also in the bridge, like you're holding up a bridge, right? And the combination card is actually an 8 of diamonds.
Yeah, I just did the math too.
Yeah, so that's like a lot of sun energy, a lot of bringing forth. Again, we've talked about this, and the website gives you more to go with, and that's why I try to make these little tickers here and there to tell you about it, because what we're suggesting is that not that you just learn the cards, but you start to get a classroom around what's the alchemy or the relationships that are happening. Because as an 8 of diamonds family, they want to be in the sun. Everything's going to come out into the light, and there's going to be a lot of energy, right? And they can go into what they want to create together, or into fights, right? Because those jacks will have sections of life that they'll have to push away, and both the 5 and the 7 will have to let go, but also trust that the relationship is strong enough, because that 8 has the values that it does. So the shared values would be a big piece of how they would have an alchemical experience that would help them evolve in their astrological journey.
I agree. Yeah, I find the sensitivity to be definitely a big part of the 7 of spade personality, even to the extent of being like an empath, a person too who can just absorb the emotions of people around them. So with having 2 jack children that can be a little wild and crazy, like that could go both ways for that parent, where they'd be a little too chaotic and wild, and that 5 of diamond could handle that really well. But if it's like more of like a negative kind of wildness, the 7 of spade might struggle with that a little bit more. If it's being more free-spirited and fun, I think that would actually be good for the 7 of spade, to just kind of learn to work.
Yeah, they're workers. And their combination, the mom and the dad's combination, is a 25, which is a queen of clubs. So that's an interesting too, that almost is like the mothering and bringing through the feminine energy to the jacks, and their shared classroom, the 2 jacks, is a 9 of hearts. So it really is in that invitation. And these are just cards we pulled to help you recognize that you also have these energies in your family doing these dances.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
Gina, I don't know if you heard about the spread, or if you're even where you can do anything about it, but I'll repeat what we got. We've been talking about court cards, and we've decided in the poll to have 2 parents out of the regular deck, and then out of a court card alone deck, what the 2 children might be. So we could discuss some of the energy that might happen in parenting a court card, since we just discussed what it's like for court cards to be in your classroom, because it's our back to school series. So, and I also, Rob, I want to kind of bring in the astrological piece a little bit louder, because the cards are giving you a sense of these numbers and these, nuances that might be likely. But then when you learn your chart, or you learn your classroom, or what your soul's journey might be for your evolution, it can give you a lot of insight to why you fight about certain things.
Yeah. From my perspective, the cards do a great job of categorizing things in a general way, and the birth chart gets into some real details. and every, depending on when you were born, every 5 of diamonds is a bit different depending on the month you're born and things like that. But it's really, it's really a beautiful, beautiful thing. I think that we all can agree of that moment of your birth. It's just I've been doing this long enough that it's remarkable to see how there's really no coincidences under this lens. Not that moment of birth and those themes through which you are learning and growing through. Not that astrology or cardology will say this will happen in life and then that will happen in life. No. It doesn't say that. It does, but what it does say is, what are the types of questions you're likely to face in your life? What are the big themes? What are the possibilities? What are the choices and those types of things? And so in that way, and it's, when you see it, it's unmistakable and it's really powerful. And I just, I'm so grateful that I came across these systems, and it's been so helpful for me. And I love having this conversation because it's absolutely wild. But yeah, the birth chart speaks to all those different things. These are trigger points, all these different elements that the cards do as well. And it's remarkable to see it interact in families because, doing hypnosis, I do a lot of past life regression, and I'm, from my perspective, it's been very clear that that we choose our family. They choose us. These aren't random occurrences of, there's lessons, and the people in our family are, we've chosen at some level to work with them and through the things that we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is really something, like in talking to one of my long-term reflections, that 9 of Diamonds thread that I'm in, talking all my 9 of Diamonds on Fridays. And she and I were talking about responses to life. And it really goes back to your 7, 8, 9 thing, Rob, which wherever you got it from. Oh, thank you, Will Home. Thank you. So whatever that is, it's like the let go and let God, that's never been a hard part. But being rejected, or somebody like not understanding what I need to say, or being really sensitive to the projections of others that I'm doing it wrong, right? Because when you move from a certain type of internal guidance, you're not necessarily traditional, right? It's not really likely. Most unique was because I was doing things. It's like, I can't believe she did that. And I was like, I can't believe you're not doing that, because it made so much sense to me to do what I was doing. But eventually, the way I would internalize the judgments and the projections were like an affliction to my personality. But that was in my chart and in my process of what I was going to need to grow through, right? Like to grow through the density of someone else's idea of what you should be to become what you actually feel like you are inside. Like that's part of the seed story that we use again on the website to help you kind of track and imagine that you will be challenged by certain aspects and tendencies. And there are energies that are kind of polishing the diamond, bumping and grinding and like helping you figure out like what's true and not true. Like if it weren't for the resistance of the 4 sons that are mine, like, I don't know that I'd have the clarity I do, because I had to keep going back to myself and not like, I didn't have somebody to join me. So I had to be like, well, let me look at this again. Let me see if I'm really comfortable with this. Because boy, they're really challenging me about this. But it was that they're 8 of clubs. I mean, they had no interest in changing their mind. I mean, what the heck? Queen of Hearts didn't want to change their mind. They wanted to have their own mind. They don't want my mind. Right. So it's that kind of thing that I had to realize, oh, yeah, me too. I don't want their mind. I want my mind. Like, oh, they're right. Hold on. Like, what do I think? But all of that was in my chart. So, yes, I had to live it. And I'm kind of like aware to a degree. But when you have that information to kind of confirm your reality, you're like, okay, so now how do I want to navigate this? What do I know? Do you know what I mean? How do I keep myself still? How do I pay attention differently? That's the ancient tree, the wisdom that we want to bring to the families. Because when you have that sense of like, oh, this is my terrain, this is what I'm here to learn, and this is the obstacles. Imagine that, like getting on an obstacle course and knowing all the obstacles as they come, and even having the ability to create stillness and navigate it with consciousness. I'm excited.
Yeah, I love the fact that the birth chart can give such detail, just like you said, Rob, like particularly about families and about soul contracts that you have with another family member. What is your take on that, Rob?
Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, I don't. Soul contracts is not a word I use. I you know the what's interesting is that in the birth chart, you know, you can look at the birth chart and say, hey, wow, challenges with mom or challenges with dad. But guess what? You had that birth chart before before your dad even ever called you that name, you know? And so it becomes very clear that, you know, it's a sort of I think we should have a whole discussion on this type of thing, these deeper kind of, for lack of a better word, metaphysical understandings of these dynamics. But from my perspective, of course, these things root to past lifetimes, whether or not it was your dad in a past lifetime or whatever, there was a wound related to father. Oh, sorry, you just all went away. I thought maybe I lost my internet connection, but a wound related to father. And there's something about interacting with father in this lifetime that's going to bring up some of those sensitivities. And there's no way around it but through it. And, you know, it's that type of thing. It's like, you know what, the way I've learned to understand these things through these past life regressions and that sort of thing, and life between life type of stuff, is that we choose that this is something important for my evolution to navigate and work through this. And the fact that the wounds are brought up is not to cause pain. It's more of what am I believing that's making this harder than it needs to be? And I don't mean to minimize or mitigate any of the horrific traumas people have been through, because some really awful things. But how are we contributing to our own pain and suffering through our own thinking? You know, I think that's where we can help ourselves. So yeah, so let's take that spotlight off. That makes me feel
Well, it was really good what you were saying. I'm sorry. Once you were talking, it felt bad to click you off in the middle, but okay, I won't do that. But I heard you. So go ahead, Jean. You need to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna, like, what Rob was saying is true. Like, that was told to me, like, because I had a placement or an aspect in my chart that I was looking into, and the astrologer told me, he said, the moment you took your first breath, that was there. So before anybody ever spoke to you, before anybody used the words that they used that may have hurt you, you had this placement. So those things had to happen for this energy to kind of play out. And it's not that you're being punished for it, but it was something that you required to evolve. Yes, it's a wound, but at the same time, you're not being punished per se, but more about, this is how you work through some of these things so that you can evolve, so that you can heal. A lot of times, you know, we have these aspects that, you know, I mean, I have Moon and Pluto, I've got Chiron doing all kinds of stuff. So it really lined up to my upbringing. But at the same time, I realized, like, I needed all those things to kind of even get to me where I am now. Right. And I can take the things that I've been through and I've experienced, and I help other people. Right. So if I didn't experience that, right, I may not be where I am doing what I'm doing. So now I can look at my chart and look at it with a lot of grace, a lot of, forgiveness and peace, knowing that I needed these experiences, you know, rather than be like, why me, you know, and why did that have to happen, when this is what part in this lifetime on here in ghetto earth, I needed to have these placements, these, you know, things to work out the things that I have, you know, been having to deal with or came here to evolve from. So I like how you said that, because it's true. The moment you were born, it's a snapshot. So these were all in place before any of those, you know, family dynamics even took place.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And then with
and
our consciousness, we choose. I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean, and you look into the eyes of a newborn infant, and it's not a blank slate. I mean,
No.
there's a whole world in there, and that's the world that we're talking about. And there's certain, the way I see it is that our part of the journey is about letting go of some of the old self concepts that were made in moments of trauma and limitation and hurt. And we innocently, of course, made a self concept around it. And there's something about questioning, and for that child that was bitten by the dog, that child might think, well, I was bitten, no one else was, I'm not good enough, or like whatever it is, all these innocent types of interpretations, but none of it being actually reality. And that child might innocently think that all dogs are potential bites, when in reality they want to be his or her best friend. And so I see part of life, a part of the journey is about questioning any of those limiting self concepts in a way such that you free yourself from those limiting self interpretations of what happened. It wasn't you, it's you're not what happens to you. We learn through it. That's the thing. Yeah.
Nice, Rob.
And
It's
I'll
all
say
about
this too. Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna say real quick, learning a placement that I had, it validated what I experienced, where I thought I was crazy to feel the way I felt about certain things. But once I learned the dynamic of this placement that I have, this conjunction that I have, it lifted a weight off my shoulder. Like I can't even explain how it freed me, because it literally was exactly what I experienced, and what I experienced was validated, that it made me feel like I'm not crazy. This was really and it's there. You can't deny it when you look at my chart. So it made sense. And it freed me from these feelings of questioning my whole life, and certain things that had played out, that it was like, oh, okay, but I don't have to hold this anymore. You know what I mean? I don't have to hold what happened or how it played out. It was just but at the same time, when you have your own kids too, now I feel like when you're aware of the energy, you have the ability to kind of like stop cycles and quit the certain patterns that we have, that we realize, I didn't like that growing up, I don't want to do that anymore. And I think that's a part of why our children are such mirrors too for us, where you can see where you may have had a lot of stuff that you weren't even aware of until you birth this thing that looks just like you. You're wondering why. You're testing everything you have inside of you. But I will say, like, finding those specific placements that just validated the things that I have felt my whole life, it freed me from the victim mentality.
Yeah.
Love that.
And where for me it's attachment. I had a session. It wasn't even a session, it was a great old conversation with an old client. And I had tracked some pretty deep parts of her life. So we have a sweet intimacy. And so she is about to take a journey to a place that will bring her back to a pain she holds in her heart around her father dying when she was younger. And in processing it and doing the somatic kind of tracking of it, it had so much to do with just like an attachment to it and a judgment, like it's not fair. Like, why did this happen? It's not. And like not being willing to accept that that's what happens in this lifetime. Do you know what I mean? Like myself, my trauma as a young person, it really made me understand that, like, oh, like I literally heard in that experience, you need to do this in this lifetime to help you change the way you need to change. Like, this is what needs to happen. Like, would be nothing I would pick, but it was very clear to me that this is needed to happen. And I had to accept it. Like Molly McCord will joke and say, like, you get a script, you get a whole lifetime kind of handed to you when you make certain decisions. And sometimes you're not actually picking the movie, but you're in the movie. And you are going to play out these parts now. And so that's the whole invitation, to do it more awake and aware of like what you might be wanting to grow there, because to just drag yourself through and then complain about it at the bar or somewhere else, like, I don't know that that's actually going to help us, be in a different way, because that seems to just recycle it. And another wise thing from the other Nine of Diamonds today that I meet with, she said something so smart. She goes, people keep asking me how I am. And when I start to tell them, I don't want to tell them. I don't want them to feel sorry for me. I don't want to like leak out my whole story. You know, I just want to be able to go through it. And I think sometimes that's what it's about, is to be able to go through it. And maybe you tell one or two people, but for the most part, it's something that's percolating and trying to grow through you. And if you distort it and you bond with people who have that too, you can grow a monkey on your back. You can grow a monkey on your back in a quick minute. You know, so that's part of the invitation, to keep it on the table again and like look at all the parts, because it's easy to collapse yourself into the sabotager or the victim energy. And there's always besties for that character. You know, who doesn't want to hang out with the victim who can do whatever they want, right? So yeah, that's deep stuff. I love it. Well, thanks, guys. This was a good one. Yeah, so the attachment to what happened, we got to let go and flow. One of my favorite yoga moves is Tadasana, to stand like a mountain and let the river run through. I think it's that simple sometimes. It's just not always easy to do. Definitely not easy. So anyone else have any reflections before we let go tonight? So we're at the family card table. There's all sorts of fun stuff on the website that tells you more. We're excited to keep growing. We've laid out some classes and how we're going to do the what next, and it's getting more and more clear. And remember, there'll be a sale soon. So if you're getting ready to go deeper in, let's do it. We welcome you. Can't wait to hear how it works for you. Anyone else?
That's it. Yeah, it was great chatting with you all again, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Enjoy your weekend.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Everybody.